My name is Joe McBurnie. The company is called CSI and our product is called Design Data Manager. I'm just going to start I can't promise I won't bore you, but I won't bore you with PowerPoint presentations because I have a single slide that I'd like to share with you. When Alan and Martin asked me to stand for 20 minutes and talk to everybody, I thought, well, this will be interesting. It's not what I like to do particularly, but my peers agreed to do it as well. So I thought, well, what should I talk about? And I think the other guys are going to talk about some of the leading edge technologies that are available today and how people either are or should be using them. I thought what I'd do was just share my experience and my journey to where I am today and what I picked up along the way in terms of my observations and where most businesses are in terms of product data and life cycle management, PDM or PLM. I've been told I've got 20 minutes. If anybody's watching the clock and I'm taking too long, do a Mexican wave and I'll sit down. So one of the things that I tend to talk to customers and prospects a lot about is digitizing the industrial age, and I talk about it because I feel like I come from the industrial age. I left Liverpool on the 4th of June 1985 with 4 CSEs as they were at the time, not an awful lot. Got a job as a precision engineer. Then I worked in a drawing office on drawing boards. Pardon? Drawing boards, yeah. On a drawing board, and we had a book, a register that we used to put new drawing numbers in. We had pre-printed forms for filling out mod notes. There was a white copy for engineering, a yellow copy for quality, and a blue copy for production, etc., etc. And I then introduced 2D CAD, and in 1991 I realized that the amount of digital information that we were creating, even with very early 2D CAD, which was running on a Unix HPUX platform, I quickly realized that this was going to very quickly get out of control, which seems a bit odd saying that 26 years later, 27 years later. So I finished writing this PDM spec on, I think it's the 24th of February 1992, and there weren't many PDM and PLM solutions around at the time. There certainly weren't any that were affordable to a small engineering business in Camberley, which is where we were based. So I decided to build a PDM tool. It's not what I did at the time. I was a drawing office manager, and we designed gas regulating and metering stations. The last project that I worked on was the city gate stations for the territories around Hong Kong when it went back to China, so Shenzhen, the natural gas feed for Shenzhen. I worked on that. So I built this tool. I was actually going to bring the book. I've still got the specification for it that we printed off on a dot matrix printer and some sticky binder thing to put it together. I still have a copy of it. And the company that I bought the 2D CAD tool from, originally from Hewlett-Packard, and then we operated through a reseller. The boss guy there approached me and asked me would I like to be an operations manager for them. And I thought, well, that's not really what I do. But I did realize that I'm probably more OCD efficient than I am an engineer. And most of my engineering time was all about being efficient and making sure that I was going to say we were covering our arses, because whenever anything went wrong, engineering were always to blame. So most of my job was making sure that we got it right, not first time but every time, not always easy. So I joined them as an operations manager, and then I became a salesman, and then in 2000 I took over the company that is CSI, and we've been developing a product ever since called Design Data Manager, so it's 22 years old. I'm not going to talk about DDM as a product. I want to talk about what I see still on a daily basis So when I visit companies, I was going to walk about because I'm not used to standing still. But my slide presentation is really about thinking about the drawing book, the mod notes that we had pre-printed and all that kind of stuff. What most people have done is they've moved into Word and Excel and the Windows file system. So although it was all on paper in the past, the step that most companies have made is to just digitize exactly as it was before. Okay, not much has changed. We just have the pre-printed form done in Excel, or we have it on a Word document. And you know, 27 years later, it doesn't seem like much progress. And what I've learned over the years is, although most companies have a different product coming out of the company, the processes that they all go through in terms of product development or project management, change management, non-conformances, all of these processes that we go through, and every business is a collection of processes, they're typically the same. And they're all going through the same processes, but they differ slightly because they've all evolved independently, because there's no real standard, although there are standards these days to control various processes. But it's like they all do it subtly differently, and there's a little bit of cross-pollination because people move from company to company. But I go in and something I see a lot of is, say a change order, and they will have continually added to the process of the change order, because every time something goes wrong, they want to put another step in to prevent it going wrong again. And 20 odd years later, when I go in and look at people's processes and understand why do you do all of this, it's because something happened 15 years ago that would never happen today. If you're looking at data management, design data management, whether you're looking at PDM, PLM, whatever it is you're looking at, the opportunity to draw a line in the sand and just take a clean, fresh look at it, don't lose that opportunity, because it is a real opportunity to make it simple. It really isn't a black art these days. I know a lot of the large offerings from the key vendors in terms of PLM are quite complex and clever pieces of technology. If you break it all down, they're still doing the same things that they did 20 odd years ago. It's not difficult. The slide I've got here, I put it together probably about 10 years ago, because it started to irritate me a little bit, so I thought I'd try and put this in a picture to explain to people where they are. And it's really all about, well, it starts creating more and managing less. So as soon as we got into the beginnings of the digital age, 2D CAD was available. We were into, everybody was investing in an ERP system because it was a no-brainer. PDM and PLM are obviously moving a lot slower than the ERP revolution. But at the same time as the CAD tool, we started to get desktop applications. Before Microsoft Word, we had Word Perfect. Even before a mouse, we used to Control K, Control B, Control KC, Control KK. All of the things that we do on a mouse now, like Control C, Control V, Control X and things, they all came from those days, and it was a lot more difficult then. But all of these desktop applications meant that we were creating lots and lots of files because it was really easy to do, and we could load them and modify them and just keep saving versions of them, and it was becoming exponential, and it was becoming a bit of a problem. So we were actually creating more and modifying more, but we were effectively managing it less, because when I worked on a drawing board, you really thought about what you were doing, because there was no just changing it and doing it again. It was it all moved a bit slower, but actually it moved just as quick because we made sure we were doing it once and we weren't having to go over and over it again. So the desktop application world, and then obviously there's 3D CAD these days and all the complicated data structures within 3D CAD. But I still see all of these different technologies that I have on my slide from we still see a drawing register in a book that looks like it came from my grandfather or something. And people still have these. I'm not saying everybody does, and different businesses are at different points along this roadmap. Filing cabinets, Outlook, Excel. Excel, I love it and I hate it. Without Excel, most of the businesses that exist today probably wouldn't be around, because it was an easy tool to use. It's within everybody's comfort zone, and we all use Excel, and you know, I go to some businesses and the whole business is running Excel, and it's running Excel in every different department. And when I start to look at the information in every different department, 60% of it is the same information, and most of people are spending most of their time just updating that information by communicating to everybody. It seems madly inefficient, and yeah, it's a bit odd, really. And I think as much as Excel's done a fantastic job, it's almost a misuse of technology these days. You know, there are tools available, regardless of what level of data management that you're looking at, whether you're looking at, you know, big PLM stuff or entry-level PDM. There are tools that do a better job these days. It's not as difficult as you might find if you've not gone down that roadmap. If you haven't, it's difficult. Maybe you should talk to one of those guys and understand why. Microsoft Access, I just put it in there because it's a database. We still see lever arch files. You know, another thing that we get involved with are people's quality procedures, and they create a whole load of procedures in Microsoft Word, and they put paper copies of them in lever arch files in every department, and they get read 2 weeks before the audit, and then we only talk about a project that we know is going to get us through the compliance, which in my mind is all well and good, and it gets you that sticker and the tick in the box, but it doesn't actually help your business. You know, the whole point to the procedures is, you know, whether you're building them into a piece of software or not, you know, make them work for you. You know, they should help you make the business more efficient. So, you know, a lot of these PDM and PLM tools have graphical workflows engines in them that can help you with all your quality procedures. The Windows file system is sitting in there. Everybody's familiar with the Windows file system. The biggest issue I have with that is islands of unsecure, out-of-date and duplicated information. Pretty much everywhere, so much so that we wrote a nice little tool that you point it at a directory, and then it will go away and create you a list for every file within that complete directory structure and show you how many duplications of the file there are, regardless of its file name. And it's pretty shocking. When people are trying to look for information, it's all wasted time. I do think I'm OCD efficient. It gets me down sometimes, but I quite enjoy what I do. SharePoint, you know, we've had an odd relationship with SharePoint. Everybody thought, well, SharePoint's the answer. Microsoft have made this tool free of charge. It's not free of charge at all. And you know, it's a web-based collaboration tool, as I see it, and that's certainly what I think it was developed for. I know lots of people have built solutions on top of it. You know, in its heart, it's not a PDM or a PLM solution. So we've had dealings with it in the past where people have decided to go the other way, and eventually they come back and put in a PDM or PLM solution, regardless of who it comes from. FTP, you know, moving files around. I have a customer who, the engineers, there was different teams of engineers within the business because of the different product lines, and all of their manufacturing was done overseas, and the engineers were spending 20% of their time creating FTP accounts and directories in order that they could transfer information securely around the globe. And you know, it was just a huge amount of wasted engineering time. Again, there are tools available you know, from most of the people in our industry to make that an awful lot more efficient and secure. Dropbox is Dropbox. So, you know, what I see is not only all of these technologies, and some of them are used correctly, you know, but in a lot of cases, it's misused technology, certainly in my opinion. And they're all used for different things within all of the different departments. You know, I think of all of this as supply chain, whether it's an external supply chain or an internal supply chain. You know, they're all used for different things and all duplicated. And you know, the evolution of our industry in terms of you know, design, creation and change and product data and lifecycle management. You know, I just see it as a bit mad these days. There are tools available. If you're not on the roadmap, it's a good time to do it. So I'm not talking about the leading edge technologies, because I think these guys are going to. but that's my take. And I think if I was to guess at a percentage, I would say probably 70% of businesses, if not more, still fit into this bracket. I think the only way to make a difference and the only way you make things happen is by making them happen. You know, and the sooner you get on with it, the better. I've always had the view that you should balance your time between working in a business, and everybody gets so busy working in a business that they're not working on the business. And unless the business gets better and more efficient, if a business grows and you're employing more people, all you're doing is adding good people to a bad system. It's like every time you employ somebody, you're only getting 70% from them because the system that they're working in is inefficient. You know, regardless of how much effort you put into manually managing everything, it's not as efficient as it could be using the right technology. I'm not sure how long I've been talking for, but I'm pretty much done. If anybody wants to ask a question, I'm more than happy to take a question. Oh.
What's the worst company you've seen this in?
Is there anybody here from? No. It's not an easy question to answer. It varies massively. There are some, you know, some small companies do it really well. I think 3D CAD forces you to have discipline. So most companies try really hard in the file system to manage their 3D CAD data because it's a real problem. The discipline tends to be better in engineering, and I think engineers are typically used to a formal disciplined approach to thing or a logical approach to thing. But I won't name the company, but it's a household brand that everybody's heard of. It's a very successful company, and the whole business was run on Excel, no ERP system, which staggered me. I couldn't believe it. And the more I got involved with them, I could only put it down to one thing, is that they'd been so commercially successful as a business that they could afford to employ teams and teams of people just to manage all of this, these Excel spreadsheets, and the whole supply chain was done in Excel. It was shocking in a way, but fantastic in another way, because they bought our software and we got to work with them and started making a difference. Yeah, but I can't name people clearly.
I suspect this starts with my ICL students at the university. You get, you know, the final version 0.1, use this one, exclamation mark, etc. in the folder. And I was wondering, are there any particular kind of resources or anything I can point these guys to and say, look, this is good practice, do it this way?
Sure. So, and I also have to say that the reason I'm not talking about, or the other reason I'm not talking about the latest and the greatest leading edge technology is because I think most companies are here, and you know, I know these guys and I agree with what they're doing, etc. But you know, it depends on what you're ready for as a business, where you are on this roadmap, and the technology's evolving and developing all the time. So, having said that, to answer your question, things like, okay, sort of before PDM and PLM, and even with PDM and PLM, do we do alpha numeric revisioning? Do we have pre and post production? Do we have ABC 1, 2, 3? Do we have major revisioning, minor revisioning, etc.? It really depends on what you want. Most of the tools will allow you to do it in any way you want it to do. My opinion is start at 1 and just go up in numbers, because you're not going to run out of numbers, and it's really simple. Because if you combine the uniqueness of a number and its issue, that's what makes something unique. You know, I'm 50, so, and I've had, you know, 50 birthdays, so I've cycled 50 times. It's really simple. So, you know, giving something a number and an issue, and unless there's a real good reason for it, as long as, you know, let's say I'm looking at a drawing, and people still use drawings, but if I'm looking at a drawing, as long as I know that the number, the issue, and the status is correct, I know I'm working to the right thing. States is another thing that can be completely standardized on. I got a bee in my bonnet about 10 years ago over this, so I came up with a set of 6 states that will work for everybody, because everybody called them different things. And in fairness, you know, most people have just kind of aligned themselves, or certainly the companies that I deal with. And I guess I've probably been involved with about 250 different companies in the last 34 years of my sort of engineering career. The answer is keep it really simple, really simple. Major minor revisioning is useful if you think, well, hold on, I've got to issue 3 and I want to create a .1, .2, .3. You know, we want a fast one, a strong one, and a cheap one. We'll have a design review to work out what's the best thing to do. You might only move one of those forward, but you might want to keep and retain value in the exercise that you went through in order to make those decisions. So there's place for all of it. The other one to mention in answering that question is part numbers. A number's just a number as long as it makes something unique. I had logical part numbers when I worked in industry, and I still remember all of the logic because I put most of it together. You know, 21 was a valve, 22 was a filter, all that kind of stuff, and then the size of the inlet and the outlet and the microns of the filter. These days it really doesn't matter because you can find everything by additional attributes in the database. Give it a simple number. Clearly it's only my opinion or my experience in doing what I do. Hope that answered your question. Yeah. Thank you. Oh. Yep.
So you could call it bad practice. So as a SolidWorks user, previously I've made modifications to drawings or models and not felt the need to change the file name after a very small tweak. Bad practice, I know. However, when I feel like I worked in a role where previously where there was so many changes internally, and I was the only designer working on that product, should I still be renaming it? I know not should I still be, but when should you revise a model? The file name, sorry.
It's easy from a model standpoint. If the geometry changes, if something about it changes, it's clearly different. And you know, so you say give it a new file name. The answer would be put it into a PDM or a PLM system and create a new issue of it. You know, with models, it's a no-brainer. If it's different, it's different. If the geometry's changed, with the drawing, if you're just doing a correction on a drawing or it's a dimension, you're adding clarification or something along those lines. It's really your decision as to whether you think that is changing the drawing. In my opinion, it is. If you don't want to go to the trouble of creating a major release, i.e. from 1 to 2, because that might then constitute a change to the part and have to change it all the way through ERP and the whole process, then you could always take it to 1.1. So a minor revision there would mean that, yes, you've modified the drawing and it is different, so you can see the differences between the two, but it doesn't necessarily constitute a change to the actual part itself because the part hasn't been affected. Does that make sense? So I would use a combination of major and minor revisioning. Yeah, but I would definitely save the difference so I can keep the audit trail. Yeah. Look at that, 25 minutes. Sorry everybody, thank you very much.